Thank you very much. Sorry we're a little bit late. It's his fault, as usual. Did I say that?
Well, I know that you always blame it on me, and it's actually true. Is there a Timbers game today?
No. Blazers game.
Yeah, but the what?
Oh, the Thorns played too?
No, because the way I drive, I come on Salmon from 23rd, and it was no way to come. Blazers. What do the Blazers do there?
They blaze, Carlos.
So
I'm Robert McBride of All Classical Portland, by the way. This is Carlos Kalmar, music director of the Oregon Symphony.
So this is Robert, the great driver.
Neither of us are great sports fans, but we both love music a lot, and we pay a little bit of attention to what goes on in our community, whether we
that for sure.
Whether we seem to or not. Sometimes we joke about these things.
Well, actually, I had more fun things. Actually today even, between yesterday and today I visited 2 youth orchestras.
Ah, fun.
Oh yeah, I was at MYS, Metropolitan Youth Symphony, today, and worked with them, alongside, by the way, with several members of the Oregon Symphony, because it's one of the many organizations where we actually help the young. And yesterday, Seth Struve is going to kill me because I don't say the name correctly. There is a new organization in town that is based on what happened in El Sistema in Venezuela.
Ah, yes.
And so it's in Rosa Parks School in North Portland, and I went there. And there are kids this high who, something like 8 months ago, didn't even know, never had an instrument in their hand. And 7 months later, just by showing them, they play a bit of Ode to Joy, in a very basic way. But they really play.
Yeah.
And they are this high, and, well, they come from not the simplest background.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing program. So I went there. That's, I think, I love the Blazers, and I think I might show up in a Timbers game. But I think that is really important.
Yeah,
Kids.
That's good. I'm so glad that you do that, and members of the orchestra do too. Ah.
Thank you.
Thrill for the young musicians, and a thrill for these old guys too, like you.
Thank you. Actually, it was one of the funniest things, was that, you know, in the Rosa Parks School, there are little kids, age probably starting at 6, and very few are over 11. And so I was introduced, and I talked a little bit about what I did when I was 6 and stuff like that. And then Seth and Mark, who conducts them, they asked them, so whether they want to ask questions to I was Mr. Carlos. And I would have never imagined the first question that they asked, which was just like, boom, how old are you?
That's what they get asked all the time, right? How old are you? I bet you were really cute when you were about that tall.
I was blonde.
Oh, I was blonde for a while too when I was young.
Yeah, I'm now getting back to that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
That was fun.
Yeah, good for you. We have 2 composers on tonight's concert. They both happen to be composers that Carlos particularly admires, loves getting into. Joseph Haydn with a symphony on the first half, and Gustav Mahler with a quasi-symphony / song cycle kind of thing on the second half. The Song of the Earth, Das Lied von der Erde. And the Symphony number 96 by Haydn, out of 104 altogether. Unfortunately known as the Miracle Symphony because of the story that he was in London leading a performance of one of his symphonies, and he was kind of a rock star of the day, so people got up and they moved closer to the stage to see him, and a chandelier fell down to now empty seats, and nobody was injured, which is a very cool thing, and somebody said it was a miracle. It turns out that was apparently actually the Symphony 102. And it's kind of a shame the name didn't stick to that one, because that one doesn't get played very much. And if it had a nickname, it would get played more. So maybe we should start some trend to call it, the real Miracle Symphony or something.
Well, the thing is that you look at the symphonies of Johann Haydn and you think, well, the truth is the symphonies with a name get played more often than the ones which have no name. So I would say, following what you are suggesting, let's just rename all the symphonies. Okay, the old
Name
names
them all.
let's name them all so they can at least get played here and there. Because what is exciting about symphony number 98? Wow, that's a number. It's one of the absolute most stunning symphonies by Joseph Haydn, or 99.
They
Amazing.
just get lost.
Yeah, or I did once 53, or I did 70. I kind of I don't specialize, but amongst Haydn symphonies that I had the honor and pleasure to conduct, I would say that I conducted considerably more no-name symphonies than name symphonies. Because my approach to that is, well, what does the audience actually know about Joseph Haydn? They might know the name symphonies. So let's give them something else.
Mm-hmm. Except for tonight, of course.
Yeah, it just happened. I know it's a mistake, but trust me, it's not a mistake.
It's not a mistake. Is there any particular reason why this particular symphony is paired with Mahler's Song of the Earth, or just
No.
Okay.
Now, why this
There's no
particular?
connection.
None whatsoever, because I could say it's because it's good music. But all the other 103 that we are not playing tonight are also good music. It doesn't matter. When you have something like Gustav Mahler, and you want to pair Gustav Mahler with something, you have to always, when you program, you have to kind of have a concept. And, you know that I'm a little crazy about conceptualism in programming and how. One thing you cannot do with Gustav Mahler is play something incredibly muscular in the first half. Because if you play, let's say, Rachmaninoff Symphonic Dances, a very muscular piece, great piece of music. And then Mahler, it's kind of going for the overkill, because it's constantly... On top of that, Mahler's Song of the Earth is a little more somewhat challenging because of the content of it, because it's all about the end of life and somewhat death in very different aspects. So what are you going to do with it? So the best way to pair Mahler is, I would say, Mozart, Haydn, Schubert. That's it. Because, first of all Austrians, the idiomatic, then the idiom of the music remains kind of the same. The roots are the same. So there you go.
I don't think Mahler would be the least bit offended by being paired with any of those. He'd love it.
Absolutely. But I would say there are quite a long list of pieces of Don't Do Them with Gustav Mahler. Whether it is, at the end of the day, I have to admit, whether it is Schubert number 3 together with Mahler Song of the Earth, or it is Mozart, I don't know, 34, one of those genius pieces, or it's Haydn 96, it doesn't really matter. It's just that, Haydn 96 doesn't get played so often. And it is one of those pieces that, despite the story, of course, when you come here and you hear Robert telling the story and you realize, oh, no miracle in the music, you kind of expect there will be a miracle in the music, and you think, oh, what will be the miracle in the music? And then Robert tells you, never mind, no miracle. But it is so Haydn. It is so intelligent, witty, and of course there is some fun. This is the only composer I know where, at least with an orchestra that is so fantastic and so kind of humanely together as the Oregon Symphony, in a rehearsal you see musicians smiling. Because first they start to smile. I mean, most of the musicians have never played this piece. and barely heard it. So you start conducting, and it goes along, and then something happens, a little musical something, and they like, oh, that was cool. And as we go, so they smile 2-3 times at something that just happens in the music, where you don't have to do it. And then, of course, we start to work. And we work at little, it's like sophisticated cooking. And you add a pinch of that.
Excellent. I like that.
Yeah, it's not like with Haydn, it's sophisticated. So I love that, but don't go like Emerald. No, bam! Don't do that. It's pinch. And so we do a pinch, and the musicians get it, and they smile again. Also, I mean, we know each other so well, and so they are expecting that in things like third movements of Haydn, the minuets, something will happen every night. I will invent something.
You'll pause at a certain point.
God knows what. And trust me, I'm coming here and I have no idea what I'm going to do, meaning whether I will going to do. Because those are things that happen in the moment. But other than that, this symphony is just great. Two little things about this symphony which are so wonderful. In the last movement is a very motoric movement. It's a very fast movement that is written merely in 8 notes. So it's and it travels along in the music and stuff like that. And the catch is actually that when do the woodwinds play and when do they not play? Because the first violins who lead the charge play all the time. And they go, and at some moment, flute has to jump on the train. And that how you have to jump on the train is very funny by itself. It makes you feel good. And the fun thing is, the last time the flute has to jump on the train, the bassoon has to do the same, but 1 bar earlier. It's like, oh, I'm already there, and now the flute is late, or it's something like throwing you off. And the other thing happens, it's one of those things that Haydn did this technique later in his life, and always, rarely in slow movements, always in the fast movements, that he sometimes takes the music that is, let's say, at a good speed, and stops. And you are like, and then it starts again. That alone is a joke. But what he does in this symphony is actually very funny, because, okay, the symphony has a slow introduction that is actually quite serious in character. And then starts the fast part of the first movement, which at first is fairly lyrical until the orchestra bursts out in energy, and then comes the middle part. And in the middle part, as it is customary, you know what? In the middle part of first movements of symphonies, just in general, Beethoven does the same. You take the themes and you chew on them, and you put them upside down, or you put them in cross. You do stuff. You just do stuff. Now, the stuff in this case is that you take harmonically off and end up in a place where you are not supposed to be. Now, I know this sounds like Chinese. So imagine this. You're driving on the streets of a city that you actually know fairly well, and then all of a sudden you think, oh, you know, I have a little time, let me go sideways, and you go sideways, and again, and you turn several corners until you are at a place that you have no idea where you are, and you stop on the brake, and you like, oops. And then happens in the music something that with a car you cannot do, because you are simply with a car, you have to actually be here, but you are way over there. And of course, with a car, you would say, okay, let me drive some wire back. Okay, well, Haydn doesn't do that. Haydn takes you harmonically way over there, stops, waits, takes the car and puts it here. That's all that happens. Good trick.
It's pretty cute. Gustav Mahler, second half. Song of the Earth. Mahler loved to set words. In this case, near the end of his life, he's setting words about the earth, about the cycles of nature, about the transience of human existence, and how the earth just keeps going on. We die, but the earth just keeps on, keeping on. Chinese poetry, freely translated into German. There's been some debate about how freely and what the original sources were. But you even heard it sung in Chinese.
Well, I turned that off after 5 minutes, but never mind. That really sounds weird. Sorry.
Yeah, the German's bad enough, huh?
The thing with the Song of the Earth actually is that's the title of the piece. The original title was The Song of the Sorrow of the Earth, or other translation, The Song of the Misery of the Earth. That was the original title, but I doubt it was for commercial reasons, but in our day and age you would not put that out as a title of a piece because it's not very attractive. Sorrow. But that was and it referred essentially to the first song, which is the song of the sorrow of the earth.
The first song really comes out with both barrels blazing, and the tenor's just really got a wail at the top of his range. It's kind of intense. And the end of the piece is the complete opposite, where it is so serene and quiet and sweet. And then, as is typical of Mahler, there's a whole lot of moods and sounds and colors in between. There's a tremendous delicacy in a lot of this music. Even though there's a bunch of people on stage, much of the time, they're not playing. It's like chamber music.
Well, there are a lot of things about this piece. So let me just say one word about the lyrics. So the lyrics are by Hans Bethge, the Chinese flute. And as far as I know, these Bethge put poetry to something, or reworked something that was already translated. Bethge didn't speak Chinese. He spoke German. And so he had a German translation, something basic, or he didn't like it, of very ancient Chinese poetry, and that he reworked. And that is something that Mahler took. And this piece by Gustav Mahler is, in a way, the usual, which means there is, in Mahler's music, there is always struggle for survival. And since we are very late in his life, he never heard this piece live. We are late in his life. The struggle ends in actually the aftermath, in death. And but the struggle is there because Mahler has this tendency to get very bombastic and very enormous. But in this piece you're going to hear tonight, the enormousness is limited to the first movement, oh boy, and some in the fourth movement, and a very little in the fifth, and that's all. The rest is very quiet. And so it happens, which is very unusual for Mahler, that some of the musicians who carry the heavy weight just sit there and wait. I mean, the weirdest thing in a Mahler symphony actually is the role, in our case, of our fantastic tuba player, Jatik Clark, who in a piece, the piece is about an hour, of probably 3 minutes more, I don't know, doesn't matter, but it's long. He has 32 notes, maybe 34 notes, which means probably 25 seconds to play. That's it. And that's very strange.
Nice work if you can get it. Of course, you don't want to miss any of those notes. That would be embarrassing.
Yeah, well,
He's training to be a percussionist, you know, counting all those measures and finally coming in.
yeah. But the thing is that I told Robert the story when I was at the station that Mahler's Lied von der Erde, the Song of the Earth, I listened to it when I was very young. Because I specifically remember sitting in the living room at the apartment of my parents in Montevideo in Uruguay, which means I was 13 or 12, something, and listening to the LP.
Do they really go counterclockwise in South America?
See,
It's true. I've always wondered. Sorry.
that's why it sounded so weird. And I was fascinated by the piece, and I always stopped listening after the third movement because I simply had no idea what to do with, okay, the fourth movement, yeah, but and the fifth movement, I had no idea what to do with that weird music, and the last movement was simply way, way, way too long for a 12-year-old. Because it's the by far longest movement, and it's slow. That's all there is. It's very slow music. And